Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm Jackie Young, the Chief Homeownership Officer at NIFA. Welcome to NIFA's Conference Connection webinar series. We were not able to hold our annual event this year, so we are highlighting some of our conference sessions in this web series. First of all, we want to recognize some of the many sponsors and exhibitors who would have been at our scheduled event. Klein Williams, Kinetic Valuation Group, Blackwing Elite Builders, and the Nebraska Title Company. Thanks very much for your partnership. Today's topic is factory-built homes. This webinar is being recorded, and the presentations will be posted on our website as soon as possible. I'd first like to introduce the NIFA staff at this time. We have Robin Ambrose, Deputy Director of Programs.
Good morning, everyone.
Elizabeth Fimbries, Communications and Outreach Manager.
Good morning.
And Amanda Wusk, Marketing and Relationship Manager.
Morning.
They are going to help facilitate the Q&A period at the end of both presentations. You can submit questions using the chat box, or you can raise your hand located on the panel. NIFA has not allowed manufactured housing in our homeownership program for several years. We started having conversations with Fannie Mae over a year ago about a new product they developed called MH Advantage. In September, the NIFA team toured the Champion Home Builders plant in York to get a closer look at the product. We all left the plant encouraged by the quality of the homes and the opportunity to partner with a local manufacturer to produce the units. We're fortunate to have two speakers with us today who are very passionate about this new version of manufactured housing. Our first speaker is John Wright with Fannie Mae. He joined Fannie Mae in 2011 and is on the community lending team. John has over 25 years of experience in the mortgage industry. And our second speaker is Dave Busche with Skyline Champion Homes. Dave is the Director of Business Development in the Central Region and has over 18 years of experience in the industry. Okay, I think we're ready to turn it over to John Wright for his presentation. It's all yours, John.
Okay. Let me get to my PowerPoint here. All right, you guys see that all right?
Yes, we do.
All right, perfect. Appreciate everybody being on the phone today. Dave and I work real closely together, so you're going to hear some similarities in some of the content, but we do that to reinforce that this is a kind of a new venture for Fannie Mae anyway, because we've not really tried to impact inventory from a housing type in the past, and manufactured housing is really fit to fill a void that we have. So, you know, my goal today is to give you some of the high points of our program, some of the logic behind it, why we have selected manufactured housing versus other housing types. And, you know, if I can tee that up properly, I'm going to hand it over to Dave to talk through, you know, why they're such an important partner, for lack of a better word here, one of the manufacturers that we work with as we push this particular housing type forward. Content that we're going to talk through, we've got a really good variety of participants on this call based on the list that we saw yesterday. So I won't get too much in the weeds when it comes to our lending underwriting guidelines and stuff like that. I'll hit the high points. But if you are one of our lenders that are on the phone, just giving you a heads up that always go back to our Fannie Mae selling and servicing guides as kind of the Bible when it comes to the mortgage. You know, what I say, this has been vetted, the presentation I've done, I don't know how many times, but just the legal ease that, you know, if you have any doubts or any questions, you think there's some ambiguity there, we're going to do some Q&A at the end, but always use those resources available to you. So manufactured housing, it's not a shock to anybody. You know, we are in a very interesting time when it comes to housing stock. We have an affordability issue and we have an inventory issue, which creates a bit of a perfect storm. If you couple that with what we've found through some of our research and our polling, where you have a large faction of buyer out there, millennials tend to get the lion's share of the headlines, but you have an aging population that are looking to downsize. You've got millennials that represent one of the largest buying groups. So if you take an affordability and an inventory issue and you match that up with maybe an education issue of what is available, what does it take to get into a home, how much do I need for down payment, what's that going to cost me, etc., it really does create this idea that site-built homes is my only option, and I need to put 20% down. So my goal today is to increase the education piece so that you feel comfortable in putting some of this into action. Because to do this, and I'll go through a couple slides here in a minute, there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of interested parties to making this a success. Manufactured housing as a whole is a much more affordable price point when you consider the unit itself. It's also represented just under 10% for a long time with new family starts. We look at this MH Advantage product, and the Skyline Champion has a branding to that, but kind of this new class of homes, this CROSSMOD type home. We look at this as a growth opportunity. We need this to be greater than 9% of the housing starts because it's a larger affordable. There's some statistics that Dave will go through, but one of the main sentiments here is that even with the site-built builders that are building right now, they're not building in an affordable pocket. So that's where we see this being a very advantageous move. You're looking at from 2014 up to 2017, a pretty decent increase in this type of housing stock, but we need to ramp that up quite a bit more. Also, for us, we have a duty to serve. As part of our charter, it's a huge mission for Fannie Mae, and for manufactured housing and for this affordable space, we want to increase the volume of conventional manufactured home loans that are titled as real property. Sometimes people confuse just buying a manufactured home and that all loans are the same, which they're not. You have loans that get financed through what we call chattel, which is really not tying the home to the land. It's just financing for the home itself. Our programs take the home and the land, they package them, the home is put down permanently so that you do not have anything other than titling it as real estate. It's all the advantages of site-built. So that's one of our goals. The other is to increase the liquidity for the industry. Make sure that there's a backdrop. There's a program like MH Advantage that offers buyers, just like what they would get with site-built, your 30-year fixed rate affordable financing. The product typically, when you compare it to other loan programs out there, which there's some good competitors, the programs that are offered through the secondary market, which is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those financing options are more affordable when compared to the greater lending population out there, because we've created a secondary market. So we want to be the liquidity. We want to be able to, for somebody to go in, not only want to buy these homes, but have a financing option to secure that. And the last part of the duty to serve is to enhance our existing products. We're making a lot of tweaks and changes and upgrades to our existing portfolio. If you're some of our lending groups, you're going to see some changes to our manufactured housing financing options, construction to permanent financing options when it comes to manufactured housing. It's all of this game plan to move this type of home to the forefront in order to fill this affordability and inventory issue. There will also be some slides I'll skip because I know that Dave's going to go through those. So MH Advantage, here's a couple of photographs, and Dave's got quite a bit more on his end. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to give the curb appeal, if you will, kind of the aesthetics, as well as some of the structural components of these homes to more closely resemble site-built. We did that for a number of reasons. One of the largest is there's a bit of a paradigm or a perception out there that manufactured housing is mobile home. It's trailer. That could not be further from the truth. When you look at the quality and the characteristics of these homes, we wanted them to resemble more closely site-built. So you see in these examples, there's lower to grade foundations, so they're set down lower, they're not raised. You've got things like front porch with your roof dormers, attached garages, etc. Those are characteristics that we worked with the manufactured housing community. This was not done in a vacuum. We worked with them diligently to say, what would make the difference? What can you do so that it's not so cost prohibitive that we just bake ourselves right out of the market that we're trying to serve? What can we do from a financing angle? What do these homes need to look like? So that's where these characteristics came in. The stakeholders that we've identified through our research, this isn't even an exhaustive list, but you've obviously got the home buyers. And if you'll think about every one of these particular groups through a lens of how do we get the word out? How can we better educate? How can we get some momentum behind this? Home buyers, right? I mentioned the education piece about financing. With MH Advantage, we now allow as little as 3% down for someone to purchase a home, manufactured home, through MH Advantage program. That's not really been the case before. Minimum's been 5%. We've ramped that up to 3%. We've done consumer campaigns where we're trying to get the word out through social media. You've got what we call dealers or retailers. There's a big education, whether it be through Skyline Champion or it's actually through some of us and our lending partners, to make sure that the thousands of dealers and retailers that are out there also understand what these homes are and how our financing can help them grow their business. Our lending partners, and through awesome organizations like NIFA, where we can work together with this. Again, it's not only getting the word out, but how can we get some legs under this? Manufacturers, that's pretty easy. That's Dave's piece. Appraisers, there's a lot of education. When it comes to manufactured housing, we did some look back, and of the 40-something thousand appraisers that are out there, we only could see about 1,600 of those appraisers that have done more than 10 manufactured housing appraisals in a year for Fannie Mae. We've worked, one of our guys internally that writes our policy worked for about 15 months to create a online training through a company called McKissick that gives about, I think it's 6 hours of continuing education for our appraisers to make sure they're up to speed on all of what we allow for manufactured housing appraisals, but also the differences with MH Advantage compared to what we might call our traditional or our standard manufactured housing, because we do allow for some flexibilities that I'll talk about here in just a sec. Title and escrow, those guys are invaluable for the lenders that aren't quite sure how to get these properties titled as real property. And then you've got your contractors, your general contractors, and your other tradesmen to help with site prep, etc. Now, on this call, I know if the list was any indication, there's some potential local and governmental type agencies, possibly some real estate professionals and developers. That's the segment that I think Dave and I would really like to speak to today, on top of our lending partners, because we're starting to find that, we launched this thing, one at a time. Somebody goes in, buys the home from the retailer and puts it on land. That's great. But to really get some, to make this effective at filling this affordability gap, we need development. We need people to start looking at this for infill, to how do we take this on a larger scale. The agility, I would say, with manufactured housing is that, there's certain economies of scale, and because it's built in a controlled environment, that allow developers to do it in probably smaller parcels than you might think of for site built. so that it's not necessarily just a true custom build. You know, we've got some examples where we've got developments as little as 3, 4, 5 lots up to several hundred. So hopefully we're going to pique your interest with some of this content that you kind of get those wheels in motion to move in that direction. The typical process, somebody goes out, they discover, whether it be online or going to a retailer, selecting one of these MH Advantage homes. They go to their lender for the financing. The home gets built in the controlled environment that Dave will talk about. It's shipped and installed, permanently tied down and affixed. Then they get the keys and move in. So that's the typical process. If we can get into that development angle, the development starts to come into play where multiple units can be placed in there, and someone can go from shopping, finance, and move in, and they cut out that build and install piece because that's done through the developer. Manufacturer roles and responsibilities. One of the main questions we always get is, you know, what differentiates these? How do we know? There's a sticker that will be placed on all homes that are eligible. And that sticker is one of the only things that our lenders need to verify through the appraisal. It's a picture of it. The manufacturers taking on the responsibility, and they're contracted through Fannie Mae to put that sticker on those homes. When that sticker goes on those homes, the manufacturer is warranting that that home has been built to the characteristics that we've all agreed to. So it takes the pressure off of anyone else having to try to identify, especially our appraisers, whether or not, you know, the eaves are 6 inches or greater, or whether or not the roof pitch is a true 412 or greater, etc. Manufacturers are going to take on all of that, and they can do that because, again, they're in a controlled environment and they've got the abilities for those quality control measures. Our retailers or dealer responsibilities, we're trying to educate them, but they're going to sell the home. Sometimes they do the oversight of the installation as well as act maybe in a general contractor capacity. The appraisal, the only thing I'm going to go through with our appraisal requirements is that with MH Advantage, we allow, if an MH Advantage comparable sale is not available, we allow site-built comparable sales. This is a really big shift and should open this up, because we're looking at it as site-built, should open it up from a comparable sale to help those value propositions and to help where you don't have much manufactured housing sales to go off of. There's a lot more site-built from a inventory, right, from a database. So we've opened that up with MH Advantage. If and when MH Advantage sales become more prevalent, then we require those to be used, which would be, you know, true apple to apple. In the meantime, we've opened up that flexibility. So if I've got any of my appraiser friends on the phone call here, that is true. You can feel comfortable with that. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those, because we want you to feel comfortable that you're using best comparables, which can include those site-built comps. Lender role and responsibilities, you know, obviously being aware that MH Advantage is a product type, but also verifying that sticker and verifying that the property has a walkway and a driveway or a place for someone to park the car. There's an attached garage, which is one of the options or the features. Obviously, there's that, but you're just verifying that. Everything else, you know, is secondary. The manufacturers take care of it. I'm skipping through a couple of these because you don't need to know all the details of the underwriting stuff. So if there's any manufacturers that you're you know, wanting to know, this is opened up to all of them. We're pretty much there with all the manufacturers. Skyline is probably they're the number one company that I personally work with. But any manufacturer has the ability to do that as long as they've gone through the contract process. So if anyone's curious, happy to talk to you about that. And here's a resource that'll be part of the presentation, as well as a lot of different references that you can go to. If you're a real estate agent, lender, please visit the MH Advantage website on the Fannie Mae website. If you just went to fanniemae.com and typed in MH Advantage, it'll get you there. There is a ton of resources. There's tutorials, there's online training, There's marketing materials that you can customize. There's just all kinds of stuff, as well as the list of our manufacturers. So I highly encourage you to go there and get that information, as well as our appraisers. Same deal, a lot of tutorial and information for you. And then the last thing I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of, we launched a consumer campaign toward the end of last year that extended through April of this year. We're looking to do some additional campaigns for that education. This is February, but we went ahead and extended that product through April. We're also have some retailer awareness campaigns and marketing materials for our retailers and social media content that they can put on their websites to help get this information out. So we're doing a lot at Fannie Mae. We're doing as much as we can. There's certain restrictions that we're governed under, but we're doing as much as we can to get this word out and hopefully get you and your borrowers and the people that you serve a good, affordable option, get that home ownership rate up in that affordable space, and really get this thing cooking. So that's the end of my quick presentation. I've tried to keep it around 20 minutes. I think I'm probably close to that. I'm going to turn this back over to Amanda, and Amanda, you can kick it over to Dave.
Yeah, thanks, John. Great information. So Dave, you're up next.
All right.
I know you got lots of cool pictures to show us.
So let me first start with a thank you to Jackie and the NIFA teams. There's a real opportunity for John and I, and getting in front of folks like you is really the challenge. I work with developers and home builders and land lease community operators, and I get home builders and land developers that call me, and they really don't understand manufactured housing. And they certainly don't understand. Yeah, sometimes they come to me and they understand what John's and Fannie are doing and get intrigued by it. But the whole point is we need to educate everybody. And John's already mentioned this, to the opportunity, and it's very legitimate. So my contact information will be available later. I think Jackie has it on a slide, but I wanted to point out that what I do for Skyline Champion is work with the production home builders, the land developers, and land lease community operators. About Skyline Champion, so we're a publicly traded company, 7,000 employees. We have 38 facilities in the United States and Canada, and we're one of the largest builders in North America. Last year, with 21,000 homes built. 67 years of experience, and again, we build a variety of products that go beyond, what we're talking about today. But we do manufactured coated, HUD coated homes. We do modular coated homes. We do park models. I'll show some pictures later. We also do commercial buildings, multifamily, hospitality, senior living, and workforce sectors. This is our geographical footprint. And I think more specific to the audience here is the fact that we have a facility in York, Nebraska. It's about 100 miles from where the folks at NIFA are. And they've actually been to this facility, as they mentioned earlier. So we have production, basically in all parts of the country, but very close to the NIFA folks and the folks on the call.
Dave, sorry to stop you, but I'm not able to see your presentation.
I gave you a prompt, Dave. You should be able to see it on the panel and click.
All right, give me a second here. Sorry about that.
All right.
You see it now?
Perfect.
I'm going to back up real quick then. So this is our national footprint, and this is the York facility that was mentioned previously, and its proximity to the folks that are on this phone call. And that's really important because one of the major cost factors in our industry is freight to the home site. So before I go there, I want to kind of give some perspective on what I'm trying to accomplish today. And I think John talked about, there's a lack of affordable housing. There's a lack of housing, and Fannie Mae did introduce this program with input from the manufactured housing industry. And the way I like to characterize it, I'm actually robbing from Fannie's webpage, but this program combines conventional 30-year loan terms on a HUD-coated home with site-built features. And that's probably a foreign language to most of the people on this call, so I'll try to delve into the details. But the point I'm trying to make is this is a really unique opportunity for the manufactured housing industry to get into mainstream home building, which we have not done before. And it's really all based on the MH Advantage program. And I will tell you from a personal perspective, the Fannie Mae MH Advantage program is easily the greatest opportunity I have seen. And I can tell you that my company, being the second largest in the country, is heavily invested in going after this opportunity. In 24 of our 38 manufacturing facilities are engineering and drawing and beginning to produce a new line of homes called the Genesis series that meets the MH Advantage requirements. And if you don't believe me or the fact that we're spending all this money, I will tell you that our largest competitor, who is probably near and dear to a lot of folks in Nebraska, Clayton Homes, their CEO, I have on record on a really cute little video he did, but he concluded when he's talking about CROSSMOD, which is the branding name that our national association came up with, the product being built for this MH Advantage lending program. His conclusion was that he predicts that the industry will double in 5 years. And the folks on my side of the fence that are involved in these projects and working with these prospects, land developers and home builders, they absolutely are all in. We all believe that is true. So there's a huge opportunity for my industry to participate. And more so, a lot of this, there's some political change where we are getting some very favorable support from the federal support, that is, and in particular HUD and Secretary Carson. And we've had Secretary Carson in our homes multiple times. He's promoted a housing initiative on the mall in Washington, D.C., where we took 3 homes in there. And he's been to our National Association of Home Builder display. He's been in our plants and in competitors' plants. So that's very refreshing to get federal support for our product. And basically they're looking at our price point and realizing that this is not a mobile home anymore. It's comparable to a site-built house, yet the pricing, due to the efficiencies we have in construction, make it a very good solution for affordable housing. So I'm going to jump into the conversation I get into frequently with folks like home builders, land developers that are talking about a particular market area and the things that I talk to them about. And the first thing is there's a housing shortage. And apologies, this is a Freddie Mac reference, John, but if you go online and type in affordable housing, you're going to find multiple articles that suggest that the housing shortage in general is somewhere between 3 and 4 million homes. And basically the home builders are not building as many homes as they have in the past. And a geographic representation of that is all these blue bar lines are post Great Recession home builder home production units. And I mean, you can go all the way back. This chart starts in 1968. They're not even to the production capacity going back that far. So they're not building enough homes in general to meet the demand out there. And switching gears a little bit, drilling down into the affordable housing shortage, if you look at this green line, what you'll see is that is monitors the number of homes that home builders are building that are priced under $200,000. And that production has been falling for many years. And the next several slides I'm going to show you drill that down even lower. And these are going to be representative. And the reason I say that is I'm based in Texas. We have an excellent data resource for everything real estate from the Texas A&M University Real Estate Center. And this happens to be Kaufman County, which is 30 miles east of Dallas. I'm only showing this to you as a representative example, but I can assure you that this is happening all over the country. So in this first chart, we all know that this black line is representing the increase in home prices. We all know that's happening. If you drill that down, and all these are for Kaufman County only, they produce, the Real Estate Center produces this chart, and if you look at 2019, they published a calculation of months inventory. And in 2019, there was a 2.8 month worth of inventory available to meet the demand. The Texas A&M Real Estate considers 6.5 months to be a balanced inventory from inventory to sales. So again, the production builders and builders in general are not keeping up with the demand. There's not enough inventory in the marketplace. And if you want to break it down by price point, the red arrows highlight the home sales under $200,000 in this particular county. And you'll notice that the chart is skewed to the right where the home prices are higher. And then if you look at the home prices under $200,000, the comparison between 2018 and 2019 continue to reflect that fewer homes under $200,000 are being built. So clearly in this area, there's a lack of affordable housing. And to put some historical perspective on this, this is the same chart just presented in percentages. And if you go back to 2011, 86.5% of all homes sold in this county were under $200,000. Today, that's a little under 26%. So a major shift, just a complete lack of affordable housing. So the opportunity, this chart represents the size of the generations. And the reason I include this in here is a lot of folks, have heard, or maybe the general consensus is that the millennials are more about renting than they are about ownership. And that is starting to change. This chart here represents home ownership rates for households under 35 years of age. And as you'll see in the last several years, let's say from January 2016 to last year, that ownership rate is increasing for that age group. There's a tremendous amount of block potential. There's 82 million millennials out there. So there's a great opportunity just in the fact that, we've got a lack of inventory, we've got a lack of affordable housing, and we've got just a tremendous amount of demand for homes in general. And part of the reason, I don't know if we have any home builders on the line today, but these are factors that affect why home builders are building more expensive homes. They have the fact that, and we have the same issues in construction with labor. Very difficult to find labor these days, and it just challenges a builder's capacity. No question that the construction materials keep increasing. And the one chart that I don't have is probably, as I am told by the Texas A&M Real Estate Center, the real driving force for the increase in home building prices is the land cost. I don't have a chart about that, but again, there are reasons why home builders have elected to not build affordable housing. And there's a lot of medium-sized home builders, and I tell folks, if I build 50 houses a year and I have labor constraints, I can only build 50, I'm going to shift my price points to higher models so I can create a larger volume, or larger margin for my business. So there's good reasons why they're doing it, but it creates that that lack of affordable housing situation. So where we come in to all this is, we're manufactured housing, everything is done indoors. And, we're plagued with the same issues the home builders are as far as commodity pricing and labor. But the one advantage we have is our efficiencies. It's an assembly line process, and that's where we can lower our pricing. I'm just going to show a couple slides here that are typical of our manufacturing centers, all the way to an end product. So this whole initiative that the Manufactured Housing Institute, our national association, that's calling it the CROSSMOD, which is Manufactured Home Product plus John's lending program. We're targeting homes from price points of 150 to 250,000, well below where the average home builder is building today. And so here's the glamorous part. Sorry for all the digging the details and the research, but this is the rest of the presentation is really more about what we build. And some of it I'm sure is surprising. Certainly not a mobile home. It's not a trailer. These are just some examples of these happen to be accessory dwelling units, which is not for this conversation, but these are part models. But we do build a broad variety of products. But here are some interior shots, and I'm going to start with some living rooms. I think you'll agree there's some really nice interior aesthetics with some of the ceiling options and the wall features. And behind this cabinet here is a TV and built-in electric fireplace. Next few shots are from kitchens. I would hope you wouldn't think these look like a mobile home, because they sure look residential to me. And I always say, I wish I could blindfold folks and walk them into our houses so you could see the interiors of them.
Dave?
Yep.
Dave, hi. Sorry, your slides are not advancing.
Wow.
They look good on my end, Jackie.
Oh,
I
did they?
can see him. Yeah, I can see him advancing.
Okay, I can see it now. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No. And then just a few shots of dining rooms. And then one that everybody's always interested in are bathrooms. So the segue here is into the specific product line we're developing to meet the MH Advantage program, and we call this the Genesis series. And there'll be a link later on so you can see these online. It actually has information about the MH Advantage product as well. The Sequoia model here, I'm going to give you some details. So that price is the cost of the home coming out of our York, Nebraska facility, and it does not include freight. But if you were to take this home and add all the requirements to install it, to build a 2-car garage, and that's an important point. We don't do that in the factory. It's built on site. But if you were to take this home, set it up, do all the requirements that meet the MH Advantage program, and put a 2-car garage on it, you're looking at around $155,000, not including land. I don't know what the typical land costs are in Nebraska. In Texas, most of the production builders are building a $40,000, home site that is 50 by 110, something in that area for a narrow lot model. So this home, if you had a $40,000 piece of property, you could be under $200,000. And let me show you the interior of this model. We actually took this house to the National Association of Home Builders show in January, and they have an exhibit outdoors, and our house was one of them. This is the house we took. These are the interior shots of the house. So that finishes that house. We have a total of 11 homes in this product series, and I'm just going to go through these really quickly. They're all on the Genesis Homes website, but what you're going to find in the beginning here, these particular models are what we would consider ranch style, a little bigger piece of property. The garages can be mounted in several different ways. You'll see in these renderings, one has a side mounted garage, one has a front mounted garage. And so there are several ranch style products that we're offering in this 11 model series. And then John had mentioned the fact that we're looking for opportunities to get in the mainstream and to appeal to a production builder who's building a community. And we are well on our way to having relationships with folks that are getting municipal approvals and are months away from starting to push dirt. And a lot of those folks are looking at what we call narrow lot models. You have a 60 by 110 or 50 by 110 or 40 by 110 lot. And so we have product that meet those needs as well. Basically a typical community with density. I'm just going to go through these quickly. So finally, I'm going to end with this. We've always somewhat, the manufactured housing industry has kind of been a stepchild of the home building channel, and we are really, really excited about the opportunity that this MH Advantage lending program provides, and we are getting tremendous amount of support from the HUD Secretary and the Department of HUD in basically providing us access to help resolve some of the affordable housing that's going on right now. So that is the end of my presentation, Jackie.
Okay. Great presentation, Dave and John. Love the pictures. We do have some questions coming in. So I will start with the first one here in the queue. Will IBTS offer MH Advantage sticker substitution as they do for HUD labels / plates? They go on to say, I do not expect this problem anytime soon, since this is all new, but long-term issue could be possible.
John, I don't recognize that question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it. There's really not a good process in place today for that. I really don't have a good answer for you, Jackie. That comes up, and at this point, because this is pretty new, just as the person mentioned, it's not really an issue right now. I know that we've got some internally that are looking to say, okay, what happens down the road, and put things in place. I'm not sure that there is a plan to substitute, but we're aware of it. There's just not been a lot of work done at this point in time to accommodate that.
Okay. Yeah, that question came from an underwriter. Okay. Our next question, outside of the plant location, are there any communities where these homes can be seen?
So that's a question I get quite often, and I will tell you two things. In Texas, we're creating 2 display models. That York facility, I'm not sure if they have one. Several of our manufacturing centers have display models. We don't have any communities yet that we are very, very interested in showcasing once we get them. But I would suggest that question, the individual contact me as to where geographical areas they're looking at, and then I can connect them with the right folks.
Okay, very good.
And Jackie, I'll piggyback. Yeah, I'll piggyback on that a little bit. So the way that the program rolled out early on was just like pretty much every other product that Fannie Mae rolls out. We work with the industry. We put it as part of the guide so it's available to everybody and just say sick 'em. There were a lot more moving parts in it that started to kind of come to the surface as we went on. When you think of this program being out there for 18 months or 2 years, give or take, it's still a baby. So
Yeah.
the development has probably been last 8-9 months, I would say, really coming to the forefront from a, oh, we think we should do that. So if you think about the timeline it takes for somebody to do developments, we're just now right at this moment where some of them are breaking dirt. Somebody asked us that question this time next year, I would hope that we would have an answer to say California, Oregon, Texas. So I think it's coming. It's right on the front edge of that.
Okay.
Couldn't have said any better, John.
Okay, what are building materials? How durable, safe are they in severe weather, tornadoes?
So these homes are built using exactly the same materials as the IRC residential code. And I will tell you, in many circumstances, let's take Florida, that's prone to hurricanes. If that individual wanted to contact me, I can show them our product recently built to handle those wind zone loads, standing tall after the hurricane, with the older residential home stick-built product demolished. So these homes perform just as well as the IRC code.
And remember, they're permanently tied down. So the homes that we're talking about wouldn't be, I say permanently affixed. They're not just tied down where they could move later, which makes a huge difference in the durability. So these are just like any other home on that lot.
Okay. So this next question is coming from a real estate agent, and they're wondering what Fannie Mae's definition and difference of manufactured home and a modular home.
Primary thing for us is does the home come in on its own chassis, right? Where it's titled as personal property or vehicle, right? And that's why it's got to be relinquished and then titled as real property. That's the primary distinguishing factor. There's some building characteristics I think that Dave could probably speak to better than I would, but from our underwriting guidelines, that's the primary thing that we would look at for manufactured home versus modular.
Dave,
That's a really, really difficult question for me to answer in a really short period of time. In fact, I've asked our engineers to give us a comparative chart between the two codes. I mean, these codes, you can imagine the HUD regulations and how thick these codes are we have to deal with. So it's, for me to get into the nitty gritty, really difficult. I mean, primarily the difference is a modular code is built to the IRC International Residential Code. So it's the same thing that the local stick builders are using. The primary difference is in both homes, a HUD coded home and a modular home, are delivered on either a steel frame or a steel chassis. So a modular coated home, the chassis is removed and the home is either rolled or craned onto site, onto a permanent foundation, and that carrier is returned to the manufacturing center. So probably the largest difference is the structural components in the flooring system of a mod versus, but you know, HUD coated home is engineered so the flooring system and the steel chassis perform. And to be honest with you, the facility in York, we can build the Genesis series either as HUD code or modular code. And John, either way, as long as it complies with the loan requirements, it's going to be treated as a real property transaction. So
Correct.
And I will tell you, so an interesting component of that question is this. So in our York, Nebraska facility, they service a lot of markets that require modular code. I'm here in Texas. I would say that, and I'm guessing here, and I'm going to be really low, that probably 85% to 90% of what's built in Texas is a HUD coated product. And the difference in the facilities that we have building the HUD code and mod code in Texas versus York is the pricing difference in York between HUD code and modular code is insignificant. In Texas, if an individual is outside the ETJ of a particular county that doesn't have code regulations and wants to do a HUD code, I can build it the same exact way as a modular version, and they'll save $13,000 to $15,000. So there can be a very, very large difference.
Okay. Still have questions rolling in. So the next one is, do you build multi-units?
Multi-units. Is that two-story or? Well, I'll try to answer the question as best I understand it. So the homes that comply with MH Advantage program, they have to be multi-section, multi-wide homes. If the question is, you know, do you do triple wides? Do you do 2 stories? The answer is yes. I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Or maybe like a duplex or something?
Yeah, we do those as well.
By that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, sign me up. So what are the major differences?
Get that person's name.
What are the major differences between site built versus manufactured that would make someone do site built over manufactured?
So I'm going to talk from a lending perspective, and I think probably more from just a historical angle, right? So when you think about what somebody would encounter through the home buying process and the home financing process for secondary market, for Fannie and Freddie, we've not really accounted for manufactured housing as, I guess, an equal player in that space, which has created a bit of a paradigm. So most of the time when somebody says manufactured home or site built, it tends to be, if I can't do site built, then I'll settle for manufactured housing. And that's part of what we're trying to overcome here, because characteristics, the quality, the building components, the controlled environment of manufactured housing versus with some site built, the waste that's created in a controlled environment is it's like light years less than you would have site built. We just have not really told that story very well until recently. And the other piece is, from a financing perspective, some of the requirements in order to do it were more stringent than if somebody were to just go buy a site built home, which is why MH Advantage came in. So Dave can speak to the two building differences maybe, but I think from a financing and just the average acceptance, it's been a lack of education. It's been a lack of us telling that story about why manufactured housing, especially now, really matches up, and why this financing option is just like, I mean, because we're financing it very similarly to a site built. And that makes it easier for people to do it. It's just not been easy in the past.
That is a feature that we haven't had before, a lending product we haven't had before, not to some of the unique characteristics, especially the appraisal portions that makes advantage. We just, person can't go out, or homeowner couldn't go out and look at a manufactured home and use a conventional mortgage on it. So I will tell you this, I'm going to use Kaufman County, 30 minutes east of Dallas, where I have a major land developer considering doing an MH Advantage community. And everybody's in there, Lennar's in there, DR Horton's in there. In fact, DR Horton is his largest customer. And our price point versus there is the key. So we're going to have comparable financing with MH Advantage, but the typical entry-level stick-built house in Kaufman County is around $235,000. And our plan is to be under $200,000 for houses that probably have more amenities inside them and are going to look the same, and are going to be much lower in price. I could go on and on about that. I mean, as an example, we walked into one of the price leader homes that one of those builders was building, and it was a 1,100 square foot home, and we knew we actually looked at ourselves and said, we're putting too much into our product because this house is really, really skinny. It only had 5 windows in it. And so, I mean, our value is the key. And now that we have an MH Advantage conventional loan program, you know, we're going to come in underneath what the site builders are doing, and we're going to be part of that affordable housing solution.
All right, great conversation. So homes in Nebraska generally have basements. Is that an option for this product?
It is. We can do that. Yeah.
And the costs shown, they do not include the basements. That's correct?
Correct. It's just the house.
Okay, a different question. I don't recall hearing anything about what type of foundations the homes can be placed on, slab or basement. You addressed that a little bit, John, but.
Well, I mean, we're not prescriptive. What we require is that whatever's, you know, common and customary, whatever the structural engineering requirements are for that home to be permanently affixed, that's what we would allow. So I wouldn't say that every one of them needs to look like they're not all the same. And just like Dave said, you're in a Texas versus a Nebraska. We don't tend to do basements here, so it would be different potentially than in Nebraska. But all we require is that home be tied down. It matches up with the structural engineer specs required for the home to be safe, which is the manufacturers that dictate that. There may be some local coding and whatnot, but otherwise it's more taxes, real property that we're concerned about.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, it's not that we actually, as a manufacturer, install the homes, but we certainly have the engineering and guidance to meet whatever local codes are required to create a permanent foundation. That's not a problem.
Okay. Is this program going to be allowed only on new construction, or down the road, once there are homes in the market, will purchases be an option?
Fantastic question. This is going to be once stickered, always stickered. And here's what I would encourage everyone on the phone. Let's say that they buy a home that would qualify for MH Advantage and they go FHA financing. Great product, no problem. Get the sticker on it. Because even though it's not financed with Fannie Mae today, doesn't mean it won't be financed with Fannie Mae if they choose to refinance and get out from under the mortgage insurance, or sell it to another buyer that wants to go conventional financing. That sticker will dictate their eligibility. So this is one of those products that we're looking at it from once it goes down and it's stickered. From that point forward, always MH Advantage, which offers the financing flexibilities and price point to site built compared to our manufactured housing financing.
Okay. So how many of these homes has Fannie Mae purchased so far? And then the second part of the question we already addressed, is it possible to have a basement added?
As far as loan production, we're just getting started. So we're in about it's 40 to 45 total production between last year and the beginning of this year. The one at a time, they all are new construction because there's not really existing developments out there yet. You're looking at that development angle coming online. So our goals for this year from a FHFA and duty to serve perspective was to get 25 of these things in-house. The reality is this is one of those programs that's, I think when we hit year 3, if the developments that we've been approached and are starting to come to fruition, then it'll get off the ground and there will be volume play. Now, is it ever going to catch up a site built? No, but it's not intended to. So it's one of those that the development, the volume play, just like Dave's example of Kaufman County where he's got that land developer, that's where individuals are going to see the difference. Right now, we're seeing borrowers that come in and want a manufactured home and are then sold an MH Advantage as kind of an upgrade. And what we need to do is to get buyers that are holding on to their chips thinking, I got to wait to get a site built home before I buy, and increase that number. That's when we'll start to see some traction. Right now, that education piece, as much as we're doing, is still a very slow roll because we don't have a lot of lenders yet that have looked at this and really adopted it as a new game. And then I'll be honest with you, the rates going down is probably the worst thing that could happen for a program like this, because everybody's jumping and running for refinances right now. I mean, they are covered up, and purchase business gets pushed to the side. So you get, it's like that keeping the plate spinning in the air, at the circus, or like getting it going, and all of a sudden somebody gets distracted and you're like, crap, and run over and try to do it. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I would just chime in there because I'm living the relationship with the home developers, or excuse me, the land developers that want to do this. And there's 4 other individuals on the Skyline champion team that do this. I would say our first project would be no earlier than 6 months from now. And when I say project, I mean a community of size. And there's definitely some scattered site production going on right now, not very heavily, but not only, it just takes time to get, approval and start pushing dirt. The development process just takes a long time. The other thing is, for us, our task is we have 24 facilities that we want to be able to have this Genesis series offered identically all over the country. And it's a huge, huge task for us. It's going to cost us millions of dollars. We probably, I would venture guess, maybe 50% of the way there to having all these models available, engineered, priced. So we even have that challenge still. So it's going to take a little while.
Okay, another comment, sign me up also. So I guess we should have had a sign up sheet. Oh, we got 2 people who want to be signed up.
I got plenty of time this afternoon to talk to anybody.
Are your estimated costs for slab on grade or a basement? I think we maybe have already addressed that. So the next one, are there issues with building codes? Particularly, does anyone know if there are building code issues in Lincoln that could prohibit MH here?
I would say
like
probably
local.
so.
Yeah, I think I'll give you an example, and this is just an anecdote from one of the loan officers that I had talked to toward the latter part of 2019. He lived in in Massachusetts, small town with 25,000 people, and he went in to the local planning and zoning and was trying to pitch them on relaxing the current guidelines, which says no manufactured housing allowed, within the city limits. And he said he didn't get the word manufactured out of his mouth before the lady shut him down and said, no, why don't you do modular? Well, in where he was, the price point was quite a bit less for the manufactured housing. Exactly. And talking with her, it was an immediate no-go. Didn't even give him the time of day. He showed her our MH Advantage brochure, and she said, why don't you do something like that? Didn't know that it was technically categorized as manufactured housing. So to that question, that is part of the challenge. At Fannie Mae, we cannot lobby. We cannot go in and pitch our wares for the local. We're trying to overcome that using these visual aids, if you will, and getting the word out. So any help anybody's got, any ideas in that space, we welcome it, because when we can get the pictures in front of people, it tends to change their mind. But yes, there are challenges with that. Now, I can't speak to Lincoln, but just in general, there are challenges.
Yeah, my version of that response, Jackie, is that, and it's just similar to John's. It is probably the final challenge in this whole opportunity. And as a manufacturer, we're looking for a showcase community or model center that when we get somebody that says, I don't know, I don't know about manufactured HUD-coded product, we need to show those people what we're talking about, because the vision right now is mobile home, and that's not what we do.
Is your cost when bought one by one, or how much of a discount for a multiple unit purchase?
So we do not do that. Our pricing is the same for everybody, and it does not change based on volume.
Okay. Does this ease of financing only apply to manufactured homes with the sticker, or is it now easier to finance all manufactured modular homes?
So, good question. So what we're speaking to right now is MH Advantage, which means you have to have a sticker. If this is from one of our lender or realtor friends out there, in the next several months, you will be seeing some enhancements in the selling guide, the Fannie Mae selling guide, related to all manufactured housing. I can't really tell you any more than that, but we are looking at manufactured housing as a whole, as a way to solve for this affordable housing issue. So be looking for some of those changes. MH Advantage will carry a different pricing. We tend to have I don't want to get to it, a lender, what's called a loan level price adjustment. So it's an add-on if the home is manufactured housing. We remove that for MH Advantage homes. So there are some additional benefits, but yeah, as a whole, this message should be manufactured housing is what we want to grow. MH Advantage is a component of that, and it's new. That's why we're talking about it, because nobody really knows it exists yet.
So does this product require a storm shelter or reinforced room if on a slab?
Not, but I don't think your program does that, and yeah, that would be a local code issue.
Yeah.
Can you provide an estimated transportation cost? Good question.
So I actually went through this process with all our plants in. I think the way to look at it is probably about $7 a mile. So freight plays a large part in this, and that's the benefit of having our York facility very close to a lot of the folks on this phone call. And that's, really that's why there are so many manufactured housing locations out there, because you've got to put them and spread them out to where the business is, because freight can, I can ship to Colorado from Texas, but it costs about $10,000, and that just defeats the purpose affordable housing. So
Mhm.
it's about $7 a mile.
Okay. Is MH Advantage only for owner occupied, or could it be used by an investor to build rental product?
Good question.
I mean, yeah, you can do it as rental. I mean, you're gonna face the same loan to value requirements, but yeah, it's not just a primary residence.
Of course, if we would be financing the unit under our program, it does have to be owner occupied.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yep. So how do we move forward? This is the same person that wants to be signed up.
I think we probably need to talk with that person and figure out what they're wanting to move forward to do. But you know, I think that the easy answer is, you know, based on what those goals are and what you're looking to do. If it's a lender, you know, that's obviously going to be my space. If it's developer or kind of brainstorming, more Dave's world. But I think any activity is going to be good activity. And you know, I showed that slide earlier about how many different groups or pieces of the puzzle there are to make this thing work. So, you know, we're open to anything. You asked us early on before we started this, Jackie, what we thought success was. And I think success is if we pique somebody's interest with MH Advantage and this CROSSMOD and this Genesis line, and we say, you know, that makes sense to me. I want to move forward. It's a win, because that's more than what we had before we started this presentation. So I think just each person is going to be individual. Let's see where we can help you.
Yeah.
So kind of a follow-up to the same question from the same person. Who are the lenders that are doing these loans presently? I think you've maybe addressed that.
Yeah, we have a list of lenders that we originally set out to provide our manufacturers so that they would have a good idea. But in reality, all lenders have access to this program that are seller servicers to Fannie Mae, because it's part of our guide. It's not exclusive. What I will say is that the lenders that do manufactured housing lending today, specifically if they do new construction manufactured housing, that would be the lender that I would say has a leg up, and we know who those are. The list is too long for me to name. I don't know exactly, you know, where some of these national guys are in your market. There may be some locals, but I think if you've got lenders in mind, you can send those to Jackie or to me, and we can see whether or not they've done any business, or you may just talk with them and find out what their appetite has been or is going forward for manufactured housing new construction, especially when it's like this new type of model.
What's the manufacturing timeline in the plant to actually build the unit?
Great question. And actually, all these questions are really good. So the York facility is, all facilities have what we call backlog. So if I ordered a house today, when would that house go online? In the York facility, if you ordered a house today, we could have it delivered to you within probably 4 to 5 weeks. Their timeline right now is 3 weeks. So I'm being really conservative here, and that fluctuates. We have plants that are out 12 weeks. We have plants that are out 3 weeks. So it really depends. But the York facility, which is one I hope that the individual's asking this and is interested, that would be the facility probably servicing them. And right now they're at about 3 weeks. And you're looking, you know, if they're really interested in, well, how long does it take to build a manufactured home? That's a question I kind of cringe at, because people don't realize that this is an assembly production, and you know that house is going to go online on Monday and it'll be probably done Thursday, and people are like, what? Wait a minute, you built my house in 4 days? So so anyway, it's kind of amusing, but and then you're probably looking at, you know, to put a house together, not including the garage, 4 or 5 days to install it. So it's very quick, very efficient.
Do these still have to be approved by Nebraska Energy Office or the Public Service Commission? Isn't a manufactured home a manufactured HUD-coated home a better product than a modular? I don't understand the difference.
Yeah, that's a really tough question to answer in this format. So we're not regulated to the energy extent by local codes. We are obligated to build to the HUD code, and it's very, very stringent. As far as modular versus HUD code, you know, there's additional costs regarding modular code, primarily because, as I said earlier, you're removing the steel chassis. And so the foundation has to be built structurally different than a house where the steel chassis remains on the home, like a HUD coated house. But I mean, I don't know to what extent those codes are comparable, but they're very similar. And these houses, you know, they perform equally as well as a modular coated home. And to John's point, if they're on a permanent foundation, you know, that's really what we're all after here, is creating some value and long-term value. So, probably not the greatest answer. I'm actually working on, like I said earlier, a HUD code versus a modular code comparison. It'll probably make most people's head spins if they're not dealing with construction codes, but neither here nor there.
We just have, I think, one last question here in the queue. So how do other manufacturer home builders take advantage of MH Advantage? How do they get certified?
So a manufactured home builder?
Yes.
So in the presentation that you guys are going to have on your the website, Jackie, I think it's the second to or third to the last slide, there is an email address for Fannie Mae where the manufacturer can reach out to us, and then we'll walk them through. To be approved, they have to go through a contract process that essentially, to kind of paraphrase everything, would be, I understand as a manufacturer, they understand what the requirements are to build, and they accept the responsibility of putting on that sticker. So it's open to everybody, but there has to be a willingness for them to take that on. And, you know, to do that, they have to equip their plants. And as Dave mentioned, you know, that's a significant lift depending on the size of the organization and their wherewithal to be able to do that. But we're happy to talk with anybody.
Okay, we do have two other questions here. So how energy efficient is the home? Dave?
So I'm certainly not an engineer. I'll give you the sales version of that. I mean, a lot of our facilities built to the Energy Star program. I can't recall whether York does or not, but again, these homes, there are options that if an individual wanted to, I mean, we can change the insulation packages, but we're already building to the HUD code, and they're very specific about that. But there are, again, there are options. If somebody just wanted to take it to a different place and add extra insulation, we can do that. But York is probably building to the Energy Star code.
Okay. And then I do believe this is the last question. Do they have a rear garage or alley loaded option?
So we have, beyond the Genesis series, I'm going to say the answer is yes. There's just a tremendous amount of configurations. I would suggest that if somebody were not to see something on the Genesis Home Series web link and ask that question because they didn't see or she didn't see what they wanted, we probably have about 5,000 different floor plans in our 67-year history. We've built everything, so we'll be able to come up with something for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that is the end of questions. I don't know if there's anybody else on the NIFA team that has questions for Dave or John. If not, then I think we're ready to kind of wrap up here. So thanks to everyone for your participation and engagement in this webinar. We had great questions. We appreciate that. Big thanks goes out to Dave and John for their presentations and for your commitment to the affordable housing industry. The NIFA team will continue our efforts with this initiative and looks forward to collaborating with all of you to help solve housing challenges across Nebraska. Hope everyone has a great day. Thanks a
Thanks
lot.
for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Good day.